But I was born in St. Mary's Township, as I said, outside of Raleigh in 1934. In point of fact, I recently, on the 26th of September, celebrated my 88th birthday. And it was a very different time, a very different celebration. Different things happened. One of the outstanding things that happened was a tremendous tribute that was paid to me on the day before my birthday, following service at St. Philip's, where I'm a member. I grew up in Raleigh. I can remember as a little girl moving into the city. My grandfather, for whatever reason, chose not to come with us. He had to stay and take care of his cows and pigs and chickens, and so he stayed in the country. The most interesting thing, and I don't think I've ever heard of it since then, is that my grandmother felt that her boys, the three youngest sons, were too young to be going into the city alone. They needed to be with family. And so she had them find a house. Obviously, I don't remember moving into that house, but I do remember some of the places where we lived. They found a house that was close to school because my cousin with whom I grew up was to go to school the next year. They found a house close to the school. It didn't work out for whatever reason. The second house we found was near the bus stop because I had an aunt who lived with us who had to get the bus to work. And so she would walk from where we lived, and they found a place that was reasonably close to the bus stop. As time went on, I can remember we lived in a house that was not too far from the bus stop, but a dog was hit and got under the house and they couldn't get him out. Now that probably sounds ridiculous, but we eventually had to move. Her sons found a house that had a store. The owner of the house operated this little grocery store, and they decided it would be perfect, and so we moved there. I can remember that. 1939, we moved there, and they opened the grocery store that is still in operation. My uncles no longer obviously run it, but until 5 years ago, it was operated by family. Uncles, aunts, they all ran it for a period of time. That was early childhood, of course. When I went to school, we went to a school, again, not far from where we lived. In point of fact, it was Lucille Hunter School. That school is still there. It is still open. It is still the same place, except it's a magnet school now for whatever reason. We went there, graduated from 8th grade. Something that was exciting at that time was that my 6th grade teacher was the home economics teacher. It was the first school in the city with a home economics class. Because we were in her homeroom, we had the opportunity to take home economics. I guess I need to go back and say some things about the time. All of the schools were segregated, acquainted with colored water fountains and white water fountains, and how we used to play around when nobody was watching and pretend we were going to have some white water to see how it tasted. but it was all done in jest. We would not have dared. I can remember easily the few times that I was on the bus. If you got on the bus, you did not think of slowing down until you were in the back. Didn't matter how many vacant seats there were, you went to the back, and if there were no seats in the back, you stood. Had that experience. All teachers through graduation were, as they were called then black or colored. They were colored teachers. There were some differences that were very obvious. I can remember getting textbooks that had the names of children from the white schools, because when they outgrew their books, they sent them to us. And there was a place in the front of the book where you wrote your name and the school, and so that's how we knew from whence those books had come. Probably my work at St. Augustine's in 1966, I was sent to do a summer program at St. Augustine's, which was located then on Humboldt Parkway. Church of the Holy Communion had built in the suburbs, and so the building was vacant, and the diocese had a building, and there was a community center run by Captain Dale Hollock. He was a member of the Episcopal Church Army. They wanted to do a summer program, and I was asked to do that summer program. I started that in July of '66, probably 4 or 5 years. It was a school for pregnant teens, and it had started because the county had a high-risk clinic that was for teenagers only. Captain Halleck knew that, or found out that, the students who came in for clinic were always very concerned that nobody knew they were there, because if the schools from which they had come knew they were pregnant, they would be put out of school. He started asking for books and papers and just materials that someone could come in and teach the girls while they were there. That program started. My association with the program ended in 1995, the year I retired. We moved from Humboldt Parkway down the street and around the corner to a building that the diocese, Episcopal Diocese of Western New York, had purchased and remodeled. 1600 Fillmore. Most people remember that building. We had a school that ran from grade 5 through 12. The center had a daycare program that it outgrew fast. But that program was the best program that any area could have had, because it kept students in school. It was not easy. Many people did not want the program. They didn't feel that the students needed a program or deserved a program. But we worked very hard. We fought to keep it open, and it stayed open until the year after I retired. There are so many students who I have run into from time to time who have talked about the difference the school made in their lives. They knew that they would not have finished high school otherwise. They knew that they would not have been able to do any of the things that they did, and I had made brief mention of the tribute that was paid to me. There were 7 staff members with whom I had worked that last year, and 1 student. And that student who has a 23-year-old son, teaches at Bennett High. She went on to college. When she was in school, she was homeless. She went on to college, finished, and is obviously doing a great job in the classroom. And there have just been so many students I've run into over the years who have been successful as a result of the opportunity to attend St. Augustine School. Get an education. Get a good, solid education. There is nothing that will keep you going that is better than a good education. You've got to always remember that common sense is so important, and you've got to use it. You've got it. You've got to use it. You've got to make it work. I have so many opportunities. I've had so many opportunities to work with that same population on various task forces, community committees, organizations, different organizations that have all been supportive of providing a good, solid education for all of our children. Don't take any of it for granted. It is so important to know what you're doing, to know where you want to go, to plan to get there. And one good example of that is when I was referred to as teacher in charge before I became a principal. I had a friend who said to me, go back to school and get your certification for administration. You've got to get it. Not going to do that. I'm not going to need it. They're not going to hire me. What good is it? But she kept on. She kept on until I couldn't avoid her. And many people remember Weta Clapp. And Weta is the person who kept on saying to me, be prepared. You don't ever know when an opportunity is going to come. And so I did. I went back to school and I got my certification in supervision and administration. And one night at the end of a board meeting, I received a call congratulating me for having been named principal at St. Augustine School. I could not believe it, but it happened. And it happened because I was prepared and I was able to get that appointment and went from there.